My name is Helen, and I want to share with you a story that happened to me. One day, I was traveling by train to a family conference when an elderly man entered my compartment. "Good afternoon, miss. What's your name, and where are you headed?" asked my fellow traveler. His name was Vincent. Vincent looked like a man who inspired trust, a gentleman with upright posture and elegant manners. His refinement was evident in every gesture and word. He had perceptive eyes that concealed a gaze wise with life experience, while his gray hair and neat beard gave him the appearance of a sage. His clothing, though simple, was impeccably clean and tidy. Smiling, Helen replied, "I'm going to a Christian conference where there will be teaching on the topic, 'Where are you headed?'" Vincent looked thoughtfully out the window and said, "I'm going to visit the graves of my wife and daughter. You know, Helen, I suddenly envy you. You're so young, and your whole life is ahead of you, with a chance to live it right. But my life is drawing to a close. I can't go back to my youth to change the course of events. I made many mistakes in my family relationships that I now regret." I felt compassion for this man, seeing how much pain was in his eyes, and responded with sympathy, "Please accept my sincere condolences for the death of your daughter and wife. I'm so sorry this happened. The thing is, I'm studying Christian counseling to help other families. There are so many divorces and conflicts in our time, but I believe that with God's help, we can change this." The elderly man nodded and said, "I see. Well, that's worthy of respect. It's a noble goal. We have a long journey ahead, and I can share my tragic life story with you. My wife died long ago, and my daughter recently. Consequences of my wrong decisions that I can no longer fix. But perhaps through my bitter mistakes, I can warn others and who knows, maybe save someone's life or family." I understood that this meeting was no coincidence, and I listened with interest to my fellow traveler Vincent, realizing that this man's life experience would be valuable to me. Vincent told me that he met his first wife, Mary, during his college years. They both studied at the same university but in different departments. Vincent was studying engineering, while Mary studied literature. Their paths crossed at one of the university parties. Vincent noticed Mary in the crowd. She was vibrant and cheerful, her laughter infectious. Vincent decided to approach and introduce himself. They quickly found common ground and spent the whole evening talking about books, music, and dreams. From then on, they became inseparable. Vincent and Mary supported each other in their studies and in life. Together they prepared for exams, walked in parks, and dreamed about the future. Their love grew with each passing day. Mary became pregnant, and Vincent decided to marry her. He proposed to Mary, and she gladly accepted. They got married, and the wedding took place in a small circle of close friends and relatives. Over time, Vincent and Mary had 3 children, one after another, twin boys and a daughter. They were happy together, raising their children with love and care. Vincent worked as an engineer, and Mary became a literature teacher. They tried to spend as much time as possible with their family, organizing picnics, trips to nature, and family evenings. When Vincent and Mary's children were still young, they were invited to a New Year's Eve party at their friends Andrew and Olivia's house. It was a traditional gathering where old friends and acquaintances came together to celebrate the arrival of the new year. When Vincent and Mary entered the house, they were met by joyful friends. Vincent looked around and suddenly noticed a familiar face from his childhood. It was Elena, his first love. She was there with her husband and daughter. Music was playing, people were laughing and chatting. Vincent felt his heart beating faster. He hadn't seen Elena in many years, and memories of his youthful infatuation flooded over him. He admired her secretly. It must be acknowledged that Elena's beauty was dazzling, and Vincent's wife seemed plain by comparison. "How long it's been since we've seen each other," she said, embracing him. "This is my husband, Stephen, and our daughter, Anna." Vincent introduced his wife Mary, and they began talking together. The evening continued, and Vincent and Elena found a moment to talk privately. They reminisced about kindergarten, their school years, how they lived on the same street, stole sweet cherries from the neighbor's tree, and recalled mutual friends who used to tease them, calling them bride and groom. Those times when they were in love, young, and carefree. But after finishing school, their paths diverged, and they lost contact with each other. Now, 10 years later, they had met again. The conversation with Elena awakened old feelings in Vincent. He realized that his attraction to her hadn't disappeared. Elena also felt something special. Both understood that the feelings were mutual, but each also recognized they were in a difficult situation. Each had a family and small children. Vincent and Elena decided they wouldn't destroy their families for a fleeting infatuation. They agreed to keep their memories and feelings in the past, cherishing what they had now. Oh, if only we had stopped there, at that decision, not crossed that forbidden line, beyond which there is no return, Vincent said sadly. Their agreement melted away like the first snow when they accidentally met on a crowded street in a neighboring town. The story of Vincent and Elena took a dramatic turn. Elena was such a bright, beautiful, stunning woman that Vincent couldn't resist. The wonderful memories of their past friendship and newly rekindled love, they lost all reason from the growing passion and began meeting secretly. Elena seemed to Vincent like a beautiful angel, an embodiment of goodness and tenderness, a prestigious woman you could take out in public like a beautiful accessory. Over time, they realized that their feelings were so strong that they could no longer hide them. Life with his wife became absolutely uninteresting to Vincent. Vincent began finding the smallest flaws in his wife, constantly expressing his dissatisfaction with her, and became cold and distant. Friends, parents, and relatives of both their previous families were categorically against their relationship. There were many quarrels and arguments, but Vincent still left his wife Mary and their 3 children, and Elena divorced Stephen. Vincent was offered a job in his specialty in Europe, and they rushed the divorce to manage to process all the documents. Elena was pleased that she had used her chance to be with such a successful, respected, and prominent man, which her ex-husband Stephen was not. Stephen was a simple welder at a factory. They destroyed their families to the core. It was a painful process. Passion completely overshadowed common sense. Although the children were still small, they too experienced this divorce heavily in their own way. Vincent and Elena got married and decided to start a new life in Europe. They moved there with Elena's daughter Anna, leaving behind their past lives and a trail of hurt people trying to heal their heartbreak. The new life in Europe seemed to promise them a better future, despite the deep scars they left in the hearts of their loved ones. In Europe, Vincent held a high position, and his beautiful wife Elena always worthily complimented him, accompanying him to banquets. Colleagues and new friends admired her beauty, and Vincent looked impressive beside her. From the outside, they seemed like a prosperous, happy, and successful family. From the very beginning, the new life in Europe wasn't as rosy as they had imagined. Everyday worries began killing their passion. Conflicts and quarrels became frequent guests in their home. Elena didn't work, and all responsibility for providing for the family fell on Vincent's shoulders, who now had to care not only for his own children but also for Elena and her daughter. Elena was beautiful but proud and had a selfish character. Vincent also had his own character difficulties. The so-called honeymoon period between them ended quickly, and maintaining a healthy atmosphere in the family required great effort. Vincent often missed his children whom he had left in Russia. Elena also worried about her daughter missing her father. Elena's first husband was a good man, but his efforts weren't appreciated as they should have been, and he turned out to be a victim in this situation, just like Vincent's first wife. They were abandoned simply because their partners found someone they considered better. Vincent and Elena's new life turned out to be full of challenges and difficulties. They began to understand that their action had serious consequences. But they didn't even suspect how tragic those consequences could be. Meanwhile, Vincent's ex-wife had a very difficult time dealing with the divorce. Left alone with 3 young children, she was in deep depression. Her chronic illnesses worsened, and unable to bear all this burden, she took her own life. Vincent's children at that time were between 6 and 11 years old. Vincent went to Russia to bury his ex-wife. At the funeral, all friends and relatives looked at him with scorching hatred. They openly hated Vincent. Vincent had to take his children to Europe, where Elena, with her dazzling beauty and selfishness, was completely unsuitable for the role of a loving mother of many children. Vincent's children, deep in their hearts, considered her guilty of their mother's death and didn't hide their hatred toward Elena. A heavy atmosphere of hatred and rivalry between children from different marriages reigned in the house, full of resentment and quarrels. Vincent and Elena faced constant rejection, especially from Vincent's children, who didn't accept Elena. Under these conditions, Elena had no chance of becoming a mother to his children, even if she wanted to try. The difficult everyday life of a large family began, built on betrayal, pain, and death. It was a hostile and heavy atmosphere. Vincent and Elena had driven themselves into a dead end from which it was impossible to escape. Nevertheless, their financial situation was quite successful. They were able to acquire a beautiful house and 2 cars in Europe. In public, they played the role of a happy family, and from the outside, it seemed they were successful and harmonious. Vincent and Elena still tried to build family relationships, but the feeling of guilt and regret didn't leave either of them. Elena never managed to become a mother to Vincent's children, and Vincent couldn't become a father to Elena's daughter. They realized they had destroyed their families for a fleeting infatuation, and they would have to live with this heavy burden on their souls for the rest of their lives. Over time, so many grievances accumulated in their souls that they couldn't find any common ground to establish warm relationships between themselves and the children. Despite living in prosperity, they couldn't enjoy it. Coexisting in one house and on one territory became impossible. The children grew up and began living separately. Only Vincent's daughter remained with them while she was a university student. Against the backdrop of what had happened, the girl began taking forbidden substances. One day at the institute, she had an overdose. She was found unconscious in a toilet stall with a syringe in her hand. Unfortunately, doctors couldn't save her. This tragedy morally broke Vincent. Each blamed the other. Vincent buried his daughter next to her mother in Russia. Sobbing at the graves of his daughter and ex-wife, he asked them for forgiveness and vowed on his wife's grave that he would divorce Elena. The death of Vincent's daughter planted the strongest hatred between the spouses. They remained alone in a large house, but between Vincent and Elena, there were no longer any points of contact for coexistence. They had everything one could wish for materially, but there was never a warm and loving atmosphere in the family. All they had was a bright flash of passion that dissolved in the air like ashes after fireworks, leaving behind a trail of painful regret, tears, and grief. Youth passed, time went by, the children moved away, old age approached. They remained in an empty, cold, beautiful house with an unbearable atmosphere, alone, without love and happiness. They remained with emptiness and wounds in their hearts, with enormous hatred toward each other. It would seem, forgive yourself and everyone, forget everything, step over the past, live on. What happened, happened. Everything is left behind. Enter old age and enjoy life. After all, you have all the financial benefits. But restoring the relationship was impossible. Vincent and Elena, having divided all jointly acquired property, still divorced, already being pensioners. Their adult children, the twin brothers and Anna, started their own families and turned away from them, not wanting to have any relationship. Anna, however, established warm relations with her father, Stephen. Vincent decided to leave Europe forever and return to Russia by train. First thing upon arriving in Russia, he said, "I want to go to the cemetery to visit my wife's and daughter's graves." His hands trembled, and he suddenly began to cry. "I want to fall at my wife's grave and tell her that I always loved only her. Only her. I deeply regret everything that I did. Oh, if only I could turn back time and fix everything." His crying turned into sobbing. Vincent kept repeating, "I divorced her as I promised. I divorced her for you. I divorced her as I promised." This tragic story is based on real events. Names have been changed to protect confidentiality. In one of the translations of the Book of Proverbs of Solomon 18:22, it says, "He who finds a good wife finds good and obtains favor from the Lord. He who drives out a good wife drives out happiness, and he who keeps an adulteress is foolish and wicked." Matthew 5 verses 27 to 28. You have heard that it was said, 'Do not commit adultery.' But I tell you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Jesus teaches that even thoughts of unfaithfulness are sin. Hebrews 13 verse 4, "Let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous." This verse emphasizes the importance of purity in marriage. Otherwise, there will be irreversible consequences. By dedicating the rest of your life to a mistress, you're not living your own life but someone else's. You're spending energy, physical strength, and health on someone else's offspring, not your own. Proverbs, chapter 5. "My son, pay attention to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding, that you may preserve discretion and your lips may keep knowledge. For the lips of a strange woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps lead straight to the grave. She gives no thought to the way of life. Her paths wander aimlessly, but she does not know it. Now then, my children, listen to me, and do not turn aside from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your vigor to others and your years to one who is cruel, lest strangers feast on your wealth and your toil enrich the house of another. At the end of your life you will groan when your flesh and body are spent. You will say, 'How I hated discipline! How my heart spurned correction! I would not obey my teachers or turn my ear to my instructors. And I was soon in serious trouble in the assembly of God's people.' Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your springs overflow in the streets, your streams of water in the public squares? Let them be yours alone, never to be shared with strangers. May her breasts satisfy you always. May you ever be intoxicated with her love. Why, my son, be intoxicated with another man's wife? Why embrace the bosom of a wayward woman? For your ways are in full view of the Lord, and he examines all your paths. The evil deeds of the wicked ensnare them. The cords of their sins hold them fast. For lack of discipline they will die, led astray by their own great folly. God's commandments and instructions are given to us not to limit us but to protect us from trouble. They are like a guide to life that God has given us with love. These warnings are like road signs. If we ignore them, we risk getting into trouble and ruining the happy, blessed life that the Lord intended for us. Have you seen families where there is always harmony in everything, where spouses are completely satisfied with attention, warmth, and emotional support throughout their entire married life? Such families simply don't exist. At different periods of family life, we have different needs, and our partner can't always satisfy them immediately. Relationships are based on the choice of love and the desire not only to satisfy one's own needs but also to care for the well-being of the other, even when you yourself have no strength left. 1 Corinthians 10 verses 23 to 24. "All things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful for me, but not all things edify. Let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor. An honest and faithful person will never choose the path of meanness and betrayal and will not cause pain to their children." Proverbs 6 verses 30 to 31. "People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his hunger when he is starving. Yet if he is caught, he must pay sevenfold. He must give up all the wealth of his house." Hunger doesn't justify theft. A hungry thief is still a thief and must be held accountable before the law. Yes, you're hungry, but you're also a thief, and a thief must go to prison because he's solving the problem of hunger the wrong way, not through righteousness. It's easier to steal, but harder to go and earn food through honest labor. It's the same with someone who is hungry in intimate terms. Dissatisfaction in intimate life is not a reason to seek satisfaction on the side. Dissatisfaction is not a reason to hunt after other men's women, to flirt and seduce them. But a man who commits adultery has no sense. Whoever does so destroys himself. Proverbs 6 verse 32. If you're seeking satisfaction of your intimate needs on the side, it's only because you lack sense, understanding, and the ability to unlock your own wife in a romantic way. Even the finest violin won't sound good in the hands of an inexperienced musician. Your wife is in your hands, And God alone has given you the keys to this woman's sexuality. Work on unlocking your wife's sexuality. If you gave your wife as much attention as you give to a mistress, showed the same perceptiveness and resourcefulness to win her heart, were tender and delicate with your own wife instead of with a mistress, then your wife would blossom for you like a fragrant garden of love. Your family life would flourish with new colors for your family, and you, your wife, and your children would shine with happiness. But you stubbornly continue doing what you're doing, and therefore, blows and disgrace he will find, and his dishonor will not be wiped away. For jealousy arouses a husband's fury, and he will show no mercy when he takes revenge. He will not accept any compensation. He will refuse a bribe, however great it is. Proverbs 6 verses 33 to 35. Stop. Never believe the words of a mistress swearing her strong love. In that moment, she doesn't love you. She loves herself and takes care of herself first. She's calculating how to arrange her life comfortably at your expense and at the expense of your wife's and children's happiness. She's driven by selfish love for herself and her children. She will never love your children. True love does no harm to one's neighbor. If she truly loved you, she would never subject you to shame, wouldn't make you choose between her and your family, and wouldn't cause pain to your loved ones and children. Because true love is patient, love is kind. Love does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil but rejoices with the truth. 1 Corinthians 13, chapter 4-6. The mistress's words about love, this isn't love at all, but deceitful words, manipulation to use you and your resources for her own benefit. In reality, she envies your prosperous life and regrets that she's not in your wife's place. And you yourself, with your own hands, are destroying the wall built around your family, allowing this evil, envious woman to enter. And how can you expect happiness after all this? Once, in a nursing home, elderly people were asked what they regretted most in their old age. Their answer was sad and instructive. Many of them confessed that their biggest regret was that they didn't value what they had. In pursuit of something illusory and temporary, they missed the true treasures of their lives: family, friends, love, and the support of loved ones. And now, in the twilight of their years, they had to face the loneliness that became the bitter consequence of their former indifference. This story is a reminder to us all. Value those who are near, cherish relationships with them, and don't forget the importance of faithfulness, love, and kindness. For it is these qualities that make our lives real, filled with meaning and joy. Faithfulness in the family plays a key role in the health and strength of marital relationships. It is the foundation of trust and love, helping spouses go through all of life's difficulties together. In the New Russian translation of the book of Malachi 2 verses 15-16, it says, "So guard yourself in your spirit, and do not break faith with the wife of your youth." I hate divorce, says the Lord God of Israel, and I hate a man's covering himself with violence, says the Lord Almighty. So guard yourself in your spirit, and do not break faith. These verses emphasize that God expects faithfulness and devotion from us in marriage, and warn us of the consequences of unfaithfulness. Ephesians 5 verses 25-28 instructs, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless." In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. These words draw our attention to the importance of selfless love and care, which in turn strengthens trust and devotion in marital relationships. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Gospel of Luke 10 verse 27. This commandment is the foundation of all other commandments and teaches us to put God and love for our neighbor first in our lives. Love and faithfulness to God help us develop love and faithfulness in our family relationships. Faithfulness in marriage is not only observing commandments but also a manifestation of deep love for God and respect for your partner, which ultimately brings blessing and joy to family life. May the Lord bless your families, and may faithful partners receive faithful husbands and wives. Vincent and I exchanged contact information, and after the conference, I want to reach out to him to support him with words of comfort. I want to tell him that the Lord has forgiveness for him and that the path to sincere repentance and renewal is always open. Dear friends, what would you advise Vincent? How should he live going forward? How can he cope with loneliness? How can he restore relationships with his children? Is there hope for his seemingly hopeless life? Your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer.